The first king of Rohan was Eorl, but since I suck at pronouncing everything, I'll just call him Young E. He was called The Young because at just 16, he became the leader of the Yotiod, which means people of the horses. And even in his older years, bro never lost his yellow hair. After his dad got killed by a wild horse called Mansbane, teenage E hunted it down. But instead of killing the horse, young E demanded it serve him for life. And since this horse could understand the words of men, it agreed, and young E named him Fréaláf. This steed became the ancestor of all the legendary metas, including Shadowfax. Fast forward a few years, Gondor was getting its ass beaten by some Easterlings and Orcs, so they called Eorl for backup. Young E, being the ultimate Chad, rode south with 7,000 horsemen, 700 mounted archers, and annihilated the enemies, saving Gondor's ass. Gondor was so grateful that their steward, Sirion, gifted Eorl and his people a massive chunk of land, would later be known as Rohan. With this gift, Eorl made a blood pact with Sirion called the Oath of Eorl, meaning Gondor helps Rohan, Rohan helps Gondor. Epic Broforce! This oath was passed down through Eorl's line and fulfilled by some of its descendants like Théoden and Éomer during the War of the Ring. Young E ruled Rohan for 35 years before dying heroically in battle against some Easterlings. His loyal steed, Fréaláf, who perished alongside him, was laid to rest at his side. Now his son, Brego, became king and defeated the Easterlings. He also built the Golden Hall of Medusel and made Edoras the capital. Now while he and his son Baldur were exploring the Dales of the White Mountains, near the Dark Door, they ran into this strange guy who stopped them from going in, and then he just died on the spot. This made Baldur curious, and he swore that he would walk the cursed paths of the dead. So Baldur vanished and was never seen again. Heartbroken, Brego gave up on life and died the following year. Brego's youngest son, Aldor, stepped in as king and reigned for 75 years. Damn! Wow! Anyways, this earned him the nickname Aldor The Old and made him the longest reigning king. And he's such a goat that he drove the Dunlendings back over the Gap of Rohan, and his rule was considered the Golden Age, especially since during his reign they boosted the Rohirrim population. He died at 101, leaving behind 4 kids, with his son Fréa taking over. From Fréa to his son Fréawine and his grandson Goldwine, the realm remained at peace. Until the 7th king of Rohan, Déor, Goldwine's son, took the throne. And the Dunlendings were like, "We're back, bitches!" And they even managed to take over Isengard. But they couldn't actually take control of Orthanc because it was way too fortified, so they just surrounded the area. Déor pushed back their raids and even led an attack to reclaim Isengard. But he didn't have enough forces to pull it off. And with Gondor busy fighting other wars, Déor had no choice but to send his riders on non-stop patrols to keep an eye on the place. Déor ruled for 19 tough years before handing the crown to his son, Gram. And this guy fought hard to keep Rohan safe, but he couldn't fully drive back the invaders. He ruled for 23 difficult years, setting the stage for his son, Helm Hammerhand. The only thing you need to know about Helm is that he was One Punch Man and Whitebeard before One Punch Man and Whitebeard. During his reign, part of his council was this rich Rohirrim lord named Fréa, who was believed to have both Rohirrim and Dunlending blood. He even claimed to be a descendant of the former king Fréawine. One day, he rode into Edoras, demanding that his son, Wolf, marry Helm's daughter. But Helm wasn't having it. They trash-talked each other until Helm told him to take this outside. And when they did, Helm punched Fréa so hard he was sent to Jesus. Oh, sorry, I mean Iluvatar. And just like that, Helm earned the name Hammerhand and became famous for fighting bare-handed. Helm declared that Fréa's son and his family were enemies of the king. Of course, Wolf wasn't about to let things slide. 4 years later, he assembled his own Avengers, rallying Dunlendings, Hoseas, and Eastolings to his cause. Helm fought at the fords of Isen but was forced to retreat to Hornburg, leaving Edras to his son, Hallet. Wolf killed Hallet, took over the capital, and started playing king. Then there's a bigger problem. Winter came to Rohan, and it was known as the Long Winter. Helm was trapped in Hornburg with his surviving son, Hama, and when food supplies began to run low, Hama went against his father's commands and led a group to fight through enemy lines to find food. However, the group was lost in a snowstorm and never seen again. With both his sons gone, Helm's grip tore him apart. He grew fierce and gaunt, sneaking out alone, dressed in white, punching Dunlendings to death in the snow. The Dunlendings were so terrified they thought he'd eat them if he couldn't find food. One night, Helm blew his famous war horn, went out hunting Dunlendings again, and never came back. The next morning, his body was found frozen in the snow, fists clenched, and still standing. The One Piece is real! And his enemies got so traumatized, they believe his ghost haunted Rohan, still killing people with fear. With Helm gone and his family wiped out, it was up to his nephew, Fréaláf Hildeson, to save the day. As soon as the winter ended, Fréaláf and his men went full stealth mode down from Dunharrow, sneaked into Edoras, and killed Wolf. Fréaláf buried his uncle with honor, and the Hornburg where he made his final stand came to be known as Helm's Deep. Once Edoras was restored, Fréaláf drove out the Dunlendings and reclaimed Isengard. At Fréaláf's coronation, Saruman entered with gifts and sweet words of friendship. Fréaláf thought, this guy's alright, and convinced Gondor to give him the keys to Orthanc. But as we know, this turned out to be a big mistake because Saruman turned Isengard into his evil lair. Fréaláf ruled for 39 years, rebuilding Rohan and restoring peace. When he died, his son, Brytta, took over. So Brytta took the throne at 46 and immediately had to deal with a new headache: orcs. These bastards decided to set up shop in the White Mountains, but Brytta hunted them down. Yet, despite his fierce reputation on the battlefield, Brytta was equally known for his kindness. He treated his people with such warmth and generosity that they nicknamed him Leofa, which is Rohanese for beloved. Brytta ruled for 44 years and lived at the age of 90, making him the longest lived king of Rohan's second line. When he passed, he left the kingdom in the hands of his son, Walda. As a prince, Walda spent his time helping his dad smack around orcs. By the time he took the throne at the age of 62, he was already a seasoned warrior. But unlike his dad, Walda's time as king lasted only 9 years, the shortest reign in Rohan. This was because while riding near Dunharrow, he and his companions were ambushed and killed by orcs. When Walda's son, Folca, took the throne, he hunted down every last orc in Rohan. It took 13 years, but by the end, Folca turned Rohan into an orc-free zone. After years of orc slaying, Folca went back to his true passion, hunting animals. But Folca, being Folca, couldn't just go after a deer or a rabbit. He went straight for the biggest, baddest pig in all of Rohan, the great boar of Everhold. The hunt was epic, and Folca managed to kill the beast. But the boar fatally gored him in the process. Why does that sound familiar? Now his son, Folcwine, inherited the throne at the age of 34. In 2885 DA, Folcwine received word that the Haradrim were amassing a huge army to invade Gondor, so he sent a great host of Rohirrim to support Gondor. Folcwine wanted to lead the charge himself, but his advisors urged him to let someone else handle it. So he handed command to his twin sons, Folkred and Fastred. The twins rode into battle, fought valiantly, and helped Gondor achieve victory at the Battle of the Crossing of Poros. Tragically, both of them died. To express his condolences, Turin II, the steward of Gondor, sent Folcwine a great sum of gold to honor his loss. Folcwine passed away at the age of 73. With his oldest sons gone, Folkwine's heir was Fengel. By the time he became king at the age of 33, he was everyone's least favorite king because he was greedy and gluttonous. His only son Thengel grew tired of his father, packed his bags, and moved to Gondor. While in Gondor, Thengel served steward Turgon, earning a strong reputation, and marrying Morwen Steelshield. After ruling for 50 years, his father, Fengel, finally died at the age of 83. Thengel didn't really want to, but he packed up his family and headed back to Rohan. Not long after, Saruman began stirring up trouble in Rohan, but they still didn't know he was the mastermind behind it all. By the way, while King Thengel was ruling Rohan, Aragorn was secretly working for him under the fake name Thorongil. Now Morwen bore Thengel 5 children, including his only son, Théoden. Thengel's heir, Théoden, was very close to his sister, Théoden. After she and her husband passed away, Théoden took in their children, Éomer and Éowyn, and raised them alongside his own son, Théodred. By the time Théoden reached his later years, Saruman sent his slimy sidekick, Grima Wormtongue, to advise the king. Wormtongue spent years poisoning Théoden, weakening him little by little. After Théodred died defending Rohan, Wormtongue convinced Théoden to imprison Éomer for disobeying orders. But when Gandalf arrived in Edoras, he used his magic to snap Théoden out of Wormtongue's control. Grima got kicked out and ran straight back to Saruman. Théoden regained his strength, freed Éomer, took up his sword, and prepared for battle. Théoden's redemption arc began with the Battle of Helm's Deep. Though Rohan was outnumbered thanks to Gandalf's last-minute reinforcement, they were victorious, earning Théoden the nickname the Renewed. When Gondor called for aid, Théoden gathered the riders of Rohan and led them to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. There, the Witch King of Angmar attacked, and Snowmane panicked, crushing Théoden. Éowyn and Merry bravely stepped in and defeating the Witch King. Théoden died in battle and became the last king of the second line. His nephew, Éomer, succeeded him as king. Éomer's early years were like the start of every classic Disney movies, killing the parents. It all started when his dad, Éomer, was ambushed and killed by orcs, and his mom, Théodwyn, passed away due to emotional damage. When Éomer and Éowyn were adopted by their uncle Théoden, Éomer grew into a tall, like really tall warrior known for his strength, skill on the battlefield, and extreme loyalty. Like when Grima tried to turn Théodred and Éomer against each other, it didn't work because they regarded each other as brothers. Another good thing about Éomer is his sense of duty. Like when he defied Théoden's orders, thanks to Grima's influence, and took his riders out to wipe out an orc company in Rohan. Little did he know, this act would save Merry and Pippin's asses and let them escape into Fangorn Forest. Now fast forward at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, Éomer found his uncle, Théoden dead, and Éowyn unconscious after defeating the Witch King. Overcome with grief and rage, he rallied his riders and charged into the fight. After Sauron's fall, Éomer became king and renewing Rohan's alliance with Gondor and marrying Princess Lothiriel of Dol Amroth. He was later known as Éomer the Blessed and ruled for 65 years, dying at 93 as one of Rohan's most beloved kings. Now his son, Elfwine the Fair, became the 90th king of Rohan. He kept the oath of Eorl alive, meaning Rohan and Gondor stayed besties, but aside from that, not much else is known.